You're supposed to consult, you're supposed to consult with your committee, so you can inform them and make sure they see them. But it's, inform them this is your recommendation, and like, ask if they have comments, do it by email, not a big deal, and then just get it to me by the end of the week.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't
So
know.
who gets it?
Yeah, no, that's plenty. We're trying to make it simple. Okay, are ready?
Whoa. Put my finger in the back.
Welcome to the February steering committee meeting of Community Board 7 in Manhattan.
I'm in the wrong place.
No, you're in the right place. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So.
Motion to move. Seconded,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm announcing those who are attending based on waivers tonight. Michael Molinari and Roberta Semer have waivers for illness. I wanted to remind those co-chairs in attendance that the public member nominations for your committees are due to me by the end of this week. And I need to hear back from now, I guess, 4 committees still who have not yet responded on that. Yes.
Are those up on Google Docs? How do we find these?
I don't believe preservation.
We don't have any Madge. We're okay.
Really?
I'm tracking.
You got left out. I'm so sorry. But that's the first round here. People are just learning and okay, if you missed it on Valentine's Day, the New York Post ran an article noting that data analysis by the store Hasta Kalalu rated the Upper West Side the 8th friendliest neighborhood in the United States,
Oh.
based on census data, Zillow data, and crime data from the FBI.
Screw that.
Obviously, they've never been to a
Thanks to Elizabeth for calling this to our
That's
attention.
right.
And it's a sweet affirmation, given all the issues we struggle with, and maybe we can figure out how to become number 7 by next year. I have a request of all steering committee members and others who may be interested. I ask that all those folks do 1 hour's worth of homework in the next month. So I would like you to view the webinar that the Borough President's Office did in their fall series of board member offerings called Developing Leaders, Cohen, Passing Down Institutional Knowledge. It can be found on YouTube, and it's an excellent roadmap to the work that we need to do. It touches on issues raised in the survey responses, and the need to prepare for term limits, and the need to onboard new members with greater care. The presenter is Jeremy Block of the Brook School of Public and International Affairs. He's excellent. And you can access it from the Borough President's website under resources by clicking on Community Leadership Training Series. I will circulate it to all members of the steering committee and any other members who wish to see it. And I was able to get the actual deck that Jeremy Block used during it, and we'll circulate that as well. I don't know that we need to go through the deck now, but I will circulate that tonight to, if there's anyone who, Klari, would you be interested?
Happy to look at it.
Okay, I just don't want to flood mailboxes of folks who don't want them, but anyone who does, I'm happy to send it out to.
I'm sorry. Pulling it up.
Okay, yeah, it's worthwhile. So I would like to do that. With that assignment, I'd like to turn it over to Max for the district manager's report.
Great, thanks. I am, as I told Beverly the other day, I'm forfeiting my report to show everyone something because as we worked through the survey results, I found that several board members, and not a small number, didn't know that we have where we have all of our resolutions archived. So if you go to the CB7 homepage, which I've done here, I'm sharing my screen now, you should be able to see it on the monitor, and you scroll about halfway down, you'll see this where it says Airtable, Resolution Database. If you click that, it's just loading. It should take you to where we have all of our resolutions from 2016 through the present archived. I think the internet's just slow. It's loading, and it's also a lot. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So here you'll see right now the most recent ones that we passed at our recent full board in February. And instead of scrolling through to find a certain one, you can use this little function over here to do a keyword search. So you might type in boat basin, and then sure enough, down here, you can pull up the boat basin resolution that the Parks Committee passed on May 23rd. And you can do that with anything, and you can search by any types of different keywords that you like. And anyway, that is available on the homepage of our website. I know that many of you knew this, but it was clear from the survey results, not everyone knew we had that resource. I think I see a hand. I can't see who it is, but I'm happy to go to it.
Yeah, I actually just used that today, and it is super helpful. One question about full board votes, though. Other than going through the minutes of the full board meeting, is there any way to find what the full board vote on a resolution was? So that was the committee vote, the committee resolution.
Oh no, that was the I can clarify. That's actually the full board vote. So here I can.
Oh, it is. Okay, because some of them, like the one that I pulled up, only had the committee, like 8-0 to 1-0, and then I had to go into the full board meeting minutes from 2021 to find what the full.
Oh, that's a good point. So this how to put it? If it predates my existence here on this board, it might be a little different. But since somewhere around 2022 or so, you will definitely find all of it. So if you just pull up this one as an example, it has the committee, the non-committee, and then up here is the full board votes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And that was really the extent of my report. I just wanted to use the time, since I had everyone's attention, to share that resource for those that weren't familiar with it. So
Next, you have your hands.
Oh, sounds good. Can't see them. I'm happy to take them.
And
Just on the minutes, since YouTube videos are, I think now are de facto minutes.
just for committees.
For committees, right?
Right.
Is there, when I go looking for the videos, they're kind of jumbled, at least on the YouTube channel. Is there a way to get them more organized?
Yes, so that's a user thing that's on your screen. We have them organized by committee, by date. You just have to sort them on your screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can walk you through that some other time. That's no problem.
All right.
Natasha?
Yeah, I think, Ken, if you go into videos, I think it does sort it out by committee.
I can do that.
My question was about agendas. I don't know if I've asked you this before, but are the agendas also sort of archived somewhere? Because it's sometimes helpful just to see, you know, when something was discussed.
We don't have those archived. It's something we can try to do, but the best that we have so far is the reflection of the final agenda on the YouTube minutes, and it's itemized too. I didn't have that prepared to pull up, but it's like we have it like listed so that way you don't have to look at the full YouTube video and listen to figure it out. We have each agenda item marked. So if you go to the recent P&E meeting, it'll list the 4 different agenda items you had, and you'll be able to see them there.
And is the YouTube transcript available? The actual transcript of?
No, we did away with that because people were not submitting. That's why we moved to YouTube's as the minutes, because no one was submitting actual formal minutes.
No, I
You
get
can,
that.
anyone that wants can like do like a download function to translate it into like word for word text though.
I submit minutes for budget and strategy because it's usually a very short meeting.
Yes.
There on the YouTube video, there is a place to watch it in, you know, second, 2 times fast, 3 times fast. So if you want to scroll through something, people are sounding like Mickey Mouse, but it's very helpful to watch something and take less time doing it.
And Max, have we been using the timestamps consistently on the minutes?
I don't think he heard you.
Sorry, were there any other questions?
Yeah, I had asked, are the committee minutes on YouTube, do we show the timestamps for the
Yeah,
different
that's
items
right. Yeah, that's how we like show what the agenda is.
directly to the item that you were interested in viewing? Yeah.
And I've just looked, actually, you can, on any YouTube, you can just press a little button that says show transcript. And I think that should bring it to you if you do want to read like a long form written summary of it.
Thank you.
Okay, Roberta, did you have something? No, okay. All right, thank you. So I wanted to move on to the next item, which was a brief resolution that I drafted on open meeting law changes. We talked about this a month ago in the context of a bill that Senator Hillman Siegel carried. There were many people who seemed to feel a little bit uncomfortable going that direction towards a 25% quorum, within which we could then as a board make a decision on what we wanted that would be permissive, not prescriptive. So what I've done is to start thinking about, well, what has been the problem, certainly this winter, with our need to cancel a number of our committee meetings. And the real issue has been weather. So in the same way that a health emergency was reason for going to a fully virtual setting, I think on a day when you have single digit feels like temperatures, we ought to not have to put at risk our membership by having them go out to meet. So I tried to craft something that was very narrow and perhaps thereby more likely to be achievable in an Albany setting, but that really focused on not being outside when the weather can hurt you. I have made one small change compared to what I circulated that I would like to go through. Thank you, Max, for putting it up. And I don't know that I need to go through all the whereas clauses or the fact finding clauses, but the relevant portion of this, the therefore, is CB7 Manhattan strongly urges the governor and the state legislature to amend the public meeting law to permit fully remote public meetings when there is a local weather warning. I got rid of the advisory, which is a much lighter and less drastic weather condition, or when there is an air quality alert, which I've added, actually changed it to air quality warning, or a heat warning when it's dangerous for people to be out because of 95, 100 degree temperatures with high humidity. So I opened for discussion on whether this is something that this group feels we can take to the full board as it stands, or whether there are concerns about it. Klari.
Yeah, so I have a question. It's kind of an overlapping one. I'm not sure if where I am on your suggestions, which seem very carefully thought out and limited, but it has seemed to me from what I've observed, and I don't see nearly as much as many of you do of the overall picture, that one of our problems, and a fairly frequent one, is that members who have waivers and are online don't count towards a quorum.
Right.
And if this is seeking changes in legislation to permit these things, I'm wondering whether, if we're boxed in on that and have no authority to do anything different now, that is, if somebody's online with a waiver, still doesn't count towards a quorum, and if we have no basis to change, to do something differently, whether we might address that as well in what we're requesting. It has seemed to me, there have been meetings that I've just plain missed because I was traveling for personal business, and so that's how it is. But I found myself for the first time last month really sick and not a bad idea to come to meetings. But I wasn't counting towards a quorum, and that seemed crazy because I'm there, I'm listening, I'm voting. It's crazy that you can vote but not count towards a quorum. So I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of.
I guess what I've heard in terms of the reluctance of Albany to make more extensive changes has been that if you could count for quorum with a waiver, people would waive themselves far more frequently and you'd have far fewer people attending. So I think there might, while that is a very logical extension of this thinking, and I would certainly support it. I think there are a lot of folks who are really committed to having in-person meetings that are full and robust, and that they want therefore to limit the waiver.
And I've always been one of the
capacity.
strongest, I think, among all of us on that issue in favor of in-person. But I think what you say about the concerns in Albany, what you heard, there's some validity to that as well, probably.
So, any other thoughts before we? I'm not sure how to frame something that addresses your point, Klari.
Maybe it's a
without-
different thing to do at a different time. This
Yeah.
is-
Well, did we just try it?
I was
Natasha.
wondering, will you announce that the meeting has gone virtual before, like how will the board know, like what is the
I think,
time?
that obviously is not something that would be in legislation.
Yeah,
That
the-
would
the
be sort of our own practice and eventually perhaps in bylaws if we wanted to put it there, about how the notification should be. I mean, think of schools, they do snow days, it has a certain rhythm to it, they have rules, they have, a system underway, and we would need to develop a system also to make sure people, a blast on email or text or, something that made sure everyone was aware.
Yeah.
But I think that's solvable, but this is the narrower concern of getting the framework in law that would permit us to move forward that way.
Yeah, so we're dealing with sort of environmental issues with all of these different conditions. Is there somewhere else where like a health, like our pandemic, for instance, is itemized, or should it be itemized?
Sorry, I don't understand.
I mean, so right now, all of the different conditions that could allow a meeting to go remote are environmental, right? It's weather.
Right.
What about health? Like what if there is another pandemic or something? Public health, sorry, yes.
Well, my understanding is that in the law already is the carve out that if the governor or the mayor declares a state of emergency for health reasons, we are allowed already to go.
Got it. I thought that sunset.
So I think it's kind of covered, maybe not as broadly as we would like. I mean, we are in the middle of a flu epidemic right now, and nobody's considering that worthy of that kind of treatment. Yeah.
Somebody already asked, but I was not there. How do you know that this meeting is going to
Yeah.
come? When do you decide this?
Well, we'd have to figure that out. Right now, we don't even have the ability to figure that out because the law is fairly strict in in terms of what it allows. So this is merely an effort to get the law modified so that we could have the conversation about how to do that, which would be really administrative, not legal.
So if it were to pass, it would still be pretty vague.
Yeah.
Because I could say, oh, I heard on the radio that there's a.
No, I think what we would do is work on the basis of the forecast, right?
Well,
Well, but whose forecast? That's what I'm getting at.
I think this is putting the cart before the horse
Yeah, yeah.
in that, like, if this resolution passes and if the New York State Senate and Assembly and Governor decide this is a great idea and decide that to take our text and leave it vague, then I think we would have to make a determination.
Yes.
And I think at that time, I feel comfortable that we could come to a conclusion about how that operates. I think for the sake of right now, we should just determine, like, are we comfortable with this? Should we put it before full board? I don't think we need to have details of, like, you know, who knows? Maybe by the time this thing passes in Albany, you know, there won't be a national weather service anymore, right?
Oh,
That's possible.
oh boy.
Okay, that's exactly my point of view as well. May we proceed to a vote on this? Okay. All in favor of the resolution as written, adding also the heat emergencies? And all in favor, please raise your hand. 6. No, start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13.
Can you-
14.
My hand is up.
Roberta and Michael.
Okay. 14, 15. All opposed. Okay. 15 to 0. Anyone abstaining on the committee? And no one for cause, presumably. Non-committee members? In favor?
Shelley's on the screen
1.
with his hand up.
Is Shelley's hand up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, 2. Opposed? Abstaining for cause. Okay. So 15 to 0 to 0 to 0 and 2 to 0 to 0 to 0. Thank you very much.
Can I ask? I know Borough Board, I think it's this week. I would
Yes.
want to ask, is this something that we think would be helpful to say that that was unanimous in steering it's going before full board for
Yes.
other boards
That
to
has been my
potentially vote?
intention.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, now next to the beginning of what may be a multi-phase discussion of the results of the survey that we circulated. I think we had 27 very candid and serious responses from board members. I circulated those in modified form just to protect anonymity and clean up some ad hominem remarks. There were very few, but a few. And also circulated an AI version of a summary that Alex kindly prepared for us, which basically I felt very well represented the themes that emerged from people's responses. And then Max had prepared as well a little grid summarizing the questions that were 1 to 5. So we had a numerical comparison of those averages across all those questions. What I propose, if it's okay, and folks are game, is to spend no more than half an hour tonight and other times as the spirit moves this group to begin the conversation about how to address some of the issues that have been raised by the responses. And what made sense to me to do would be to walk through the AI summary. I'm not sure too many people had in a short time this has been available to them, to go through the very massive amount of material that's in the full responses that we circulated. But I think the summary document gives us a good handle on what some of the major concerns were. Some of those things are simply, okay, good to have this called out. We'll develop something that's a technological solution, or we'll do trainings, or we'll do something else. Some of them may involve policy issues. We'll figure that out. But I don't want to in any way curtail our ability to speak to this, and I'm happy to use time in other meetings. I want to limit it today so we have a chance to go through the committee updates, which we don't want to stay here too terribly late on a cold night. So by a little short of 7:30, we'll call it quits for tonight, but maybe get through a beginning of consideration of what this is all about. And I've asked Max to put the pieces of it. What makes sense is that Murat's framework for this, which I think was really helpful, was divided into sections. And each section really is one we can speak to separately, and maybe that's the way to proceed here. So looking at the summary of board culture and respect, I think this was really about how board members treat each other and whether they're comfortable speaking. We began to see in this section distinctions between long-term members and newer members emerge, where newer members felt, some of them at least, a little bit uncomfortable speaking up because they didn't quite understand either the culture, or they felt other members weren't prepared to listen to them, or a variety of different reasons. But I guess that's an observation that was helpful to me to understand, and then to begin to think about what should committees be working on to ensure that all their members feel a level of comfort around that. There's a couple of comments on side conversations which distracted, and there was frustration that too much time spent on internal procedural debates rather than community concerns. So just to start with, do those three findings resonate with people, and what are the things that we can work with committees to structure that would begin to address them? And happy to hear people's thoughts.
I was just wondering if we could add, not add, or just something I thought a lot about is not just how newer and longer serving members sort of intra-board, but how the community perceives us and how we perceive the community and how we treat them during meetings, which I don't know if I mentioned it in my response in the survey, but to me, I think it was there. It's not more important than it's equally important.
At least
how we work.
Yes.
So that's just something I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I think the item number 2, which we're not at yet, relates very strongly to item number 1, which is that in meeting management, if we create a safe environment and a fair environment in terms of, yes, adhering to Robert's rules, I'm not saying we have to be strict about it, but the basic concept of the way people share, not sharing again, and not cutting people off, and not having crosstalk, and certainly things like that, I think will really help to engender a safer environment where people will feel more welcome and protected by the rules and structure we have in place. So I just think item number 2 dovetails nicely with item number 1.
Any other thoughts on this?
Were you able to glean from the survey, and I'm not sure it was in wording that would allow you to do so, but were the newer members feeling more not welcome at the full board versus the committee level? Because certainly our committee engages everybody and everybody speaks.
I didn't see that distinction.
You didn't see it, okay.
I saw it as more an across the board sentiment that was expressed by some of the newer folk.
And they didn't elicit that it was at a full board or a steering versus the committee meeting?
No.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing that did come to mind, actually two things. I think first, when new board members come to the board, I think it'd be helpful to have maybe an afternoon where they can, maybe there's a board primer, kind of on Robert's rules, kind of how our board functions, the key agencies, with maybe a little social event so people can get to know each other.
Right.
I think because we don't know each other, we rush here from work, we come to the meeting, and then we're dying to get home because it's late. So we really don't know each other. So I think by having more board, especially for the new members, training, so they feel more comfortable being
Yeah, we
speaking up.
have, that's now segueing to item number 3.
Right. I know, I jumped ahead.
They're all related. So.
Yeah, when I first joined, everybody was assigned a mentor. And
Yes.
and it was really, I felt pretty helpful for me, because someone who could kind of just give you the ropes, even if it was just your first meeting, like you show up, you don't know anybody, but at least you got a heads up, so-and-so is your mentor, and they just kind of walk you through the process. And they also know people, so they'll introduce you and say, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so. Some people, they walk in, it's a little intimidating in a big group, no matter who you are. All these people that you see, they're all talking, they all know each other. And you walk in, you're like, oh boy, So it's just, I think that's really helpful to specifically assign somebody to be that person for each new person.
New folks, when I first talked to them over the last 2 years, at least, I've asked them, do they want a mentor?
I think it should be.
And many will say, and occasionally we have paired people who say yes, but that's rare. Most people say, I want to get to know people, and then I will select my own mentor. Thank you. So there's a little of that as well. I do think onboarding is something that we are going to get tested on very soon as we get new members this spring. And we need to beef up what we do. There's been training that Max provides. We have a handbook that Roberta developed and it's updated. We have other, materials that we provide to new members.
Maybe a new board member reception?
Yes, in conjunction with some training.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is it?
A reception where they can just speak, ask questions, feel comfortable.
And get to know
others, right.
When Elizabeth and I were chair, we each appointed, we called them mentors, but they really weren't. They were just a fellow board member that sat with the new member and told them, if someone was, the official was there, they explained who it was. On the voting sheet, they'd explain how to vote. Now the voting is much simpler. But it was just really nice to just have somebody that would welcome you, sit with you for at least the first 2 meetings. And then by that time, the new member knew other people and would then find other people to be with. But I think it was very helpful to have, somebody that sat with you. When I joined the board a long time ago, someone sat with me and explained things to me and would point out, if somebody was speaking, they might say, oh, that person is the chair of such and such a committee, or, give you some background so you felt like you were understanding what was going on.
I think Michael was next, and then Elizabeth, and then Seema.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to the point from earlier that, is this a full board versus committee thing? And I think, I don't think this is the forum for us to try to put our own perspectives too much into it. This is a summary of the responses of people who have responded, so I don't want to color it more than it already is. That being said, I think like the structure of full board where it's 50 people or something approaching that, and it's usually a pretty big space, it encourages side conversation where there's a little bit more anonymity. And I personally observe those sort of like negative, like physical reactions that people have. As a new member, it was like a pretty big like turnoff for me to see people like shaking their heads when people were speaking. And I'm like, you know, that seemed a bit rude. Whereas in committees, I think people behave much different because it's a smaller group. So it's harder to talk over one another. There's just a little bit more like collegiality there. So, you know, I don't know, that's not necessarily a solution, but I think that point, the distinction between full board and committee, I think it's actually a very important one because from my personal observation, sorry, just a bit of coffee here. That seems to be a bigger issue. So I think that's worth thinking about.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, just really quickly, I think part of the buddy system that we did, the sort of mentor thing, we've sort of gotten by that in recent years because of COVID. And so few people, sometimes they get onboarded and their participation is like half remote, half in person. And again, I know this isn't the forum tonight to discuss the merits of in-person versus Zoom, but I do think for that onboarding and for that first initial contact, it is really good to have a person there who can sort of give you the lay of the land in a meeting, can be sort of off the record, here's how the meeting goes. It made me feel certainly very comfortable, and I don't think I would have had that same experience if I had been doing some sort of that over Zoom beforehand.
Yeah. And Seema next.
Just one last thought on the buddy or mentor thing. I had one, I was one, and maybe the word is just a little bit overblown. Like it's just someone, if you have a question, you know that they'll be there to answer it. It's not imposing, that kind of thing. I think even just that tiny little bit of a safety net for new members is very helpful. The other thing is, so I attended that the institutional knowledge training session, which I thought was fantastic. And it made me think that in the interest of efficiency, that whether it's the borough president or I can't remember the other organization that also does trainings for us, but they should do sort of a general, here's all the typical committees, here's the agencies, here's how that whole, like the content side of things work, because every new member across the city is going to need that information. And then maybe there's a smaller training that happens here in the office about here's our CB7 specific stuff, which is hopefully therefore then much smaller. And then maybe also there's a primer for each committee, because as even people change their own committee assignments, it's helpful to know, hey, this is the stuff that each committee covers.
Which begins to get into other kind of matters around developing really deep archives around individual committee work, which is something we need to do as well, and it's addressed by some of the later sections on this. I think Shelley, you were next.
Yes, thank you. I think many people, especially newer people, but could be other people, want to be more of a part of the formulation of resolutions and the process of bringing things to a consent, to a resolution at the meeting, but don't have the modified knowledge of Robert's rules and procedures. And I think that offering that training so that it's just not a parliamentarian who knows, what's happening and what can happen, and several people who are skilled at formulating resolutions, generally formulating those resolutions without other people having the training, is not a healthy thing. I think it's something that should be offered. That type of training should be offered to all those who would want to participate.
Thank you. Jami, are you there? I know you had your hand up earlier.
I did, and I am here. I was simply going to take a different spin on the buddy, mentor, new friend, whatever we want to call the person. And it is that I think it helps, in addition to everything that's been said by Josh and Roberta and Elizabeth and Seema et al. I think it also helps to create sort of a cross-sectionality between and amongst us on the board, so that there aren't, for want of a better word, cliques that form. And there's a cross-pollination between and amongst the old members and newer members. And if we assign the buddies, sure, people might not, need the buddy or want the mentor, but if we don't create that relationship to begin with, then people do tend to gravitate toward the people they're most comfortable with, the people they knew or the people they now know. And I think there is some benefit to, again, for want of a better word, kind of forcing new relationships where people might not naturally be inclined. So I'm in favor of it as well.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Adam.
As one of the younger / newer members, just want to say that this isn't like board culture and respect. I don't think that the reason some of our colleagues feel less comfortable speaking up is because we don't understand how the system works. I think part of it is that sometimes when we say things, there's like a response to what we say that is not as collegial as we would hope. So I would just flag that, a better understanding of Robert's rules, like we're actually very blessed, I think, as a board overall, that like this very rarely comes up, right? Like most of the time we don't have to go to that. As much as I enjoy Jami always bringing her coffee. But like, in the committee meetings that Madge and I run, like we like total like make it up as we go along, right? And it works because we all if things are going well, great. So I think just to say that like some of the reason that I think we don't always speak is because if we say something, we feel like there's gonna be like a negative reaction to it. And also that sometimes the things that we're discussing at full board, I think this is like a general thing, don't always seem to be like the most like critical things in this like moment in time. And that, when we speak up, it's like we see something that we're like, oh, like we really don't want this to happen, versus just like really feeling like we can help shape something important. I think we all feel that at full board, it's not always the most like, maybe one agenda item a month is something where we're like, okay, this like really benefits. But I think, not to make fun of transportation, but like street renamings, I just don't think are something that like a lot of people have like a strong opinion about, or at least maybe the younger members that are kind of like, this seems kind of crazy. And like, if I speak up to say something, then people are gonna like tut me and be like, well, things used to be different. And that I think just makes us feel like, okay, well, then I'm just not gonna say
Maybe
anything.
right up there with window approvals.
I mean, you're preaching to the choir.
Okay, and Michael, let me get you and then
Yeah.
Natasha.
Just feeding off that point a little bit, I think, and I think this is in the second point, I find in full board, like so often we get bogged down in the like the nitty gritty of like, how can we do this? Or, like what's the procedural part of it? I think that's why you see a lot of members checking out, is because I think you have 50 people who are interested in their community, interested in a variety of topics. And then it gets sidetracked by one or two members who are, talking about like this little minutia point that's like totally independent or irrelevant to the matter at hand. So I think if we're trying to think about actionable ways to foster more participation and foster more inclusion, I think it's like trying to, I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but sort of like cut off those conversations as they start to bud, and to say like, this conversation is not about the process and the procedure, as long as we're following the rules, like we're here to debate the matter at hand. So just more food for thought there.
Natasha, you had your hand up.
Yeah. I feel like, a lot of what people are saying about younger and newer versus more seasoned members, I feel a lot of it has to do with how we some of us who are seasoned, we forget that we were also in their position at one point. And I felt like for me, the learning curve was steepest when I was made co-chair with Barbara, who was a very seasoned member. She knew everything. And I felt like just that 1 year that I was with her, like my knowledge went from 0 to 100, about like how things worked. And I'm very grateful for that. So, that could be maybe something that you could do, when appointing co-chairs, maybe to pair, someone who's very new with someone who's very seasoned. That was very good. And also, I think another very specific actionable thing that could be done is if co-chairs ask the newer members to take a stab at writing resolutions.
Yeah.
Because I had never done that until I was, I think, maybe a few months into my co-chairing gig. And, just writing a resolution from start to finish, I think it just makes so many things so very clear. So, and at one point, my former co-chair and I, we actually asked our newer members, we put it out there, who would like to take a stab at this? You could draft it and then we would review it, but why don't you draft it? And I have to tell you, there was no interest. There was no interest. Maybe they were intimidated or I don't know why, but there was really no interest. And there's another item over here, like how do items make it onto agendas? And I would say it's true that 98, 99% of the agenda items are very reactive. The agencies come to us, they're like, this is what we have, approve it or whatever. And to put something more proactively onto the agenda is difficult because you have to solicit ideas, you have to execute, you have to really put a lot of thinking into it. And it has to be a collaborative effort. And very often, like it is not, like we ask for ideas come at the speed of lightning, but then, like there's very little execution there from other people. So a lot of times, that's one area where, people have to also step up. Like if you have some idea that you feel should be on the agenda, then bring speakers or try to guide how the conversation will go. And often I find that is lacking. So those were.
Right. You may have noticed that there has been a tendency in the last couple of years to pair more senior and more new co-chairs, and that's been something that was intentional. And I think it really has helped some folks to get their feet under them quickly. Appreciate that. So Doug, and then maybe we move on.
Sure.
Even though we're jumping about on the sheet, you should formally go to the next one.
Yeah, but to respond to what Natasha just said, I agree. I think a lot of it is the role of the chairs and co-chairs to keep order, to run the meeting and poll the committees for ideas, right? I realize not everybody is going to come up with them, but you just gave some homework tonight. Committee co-chairs could theoretically do that. Not that anybody wants to work more, but if you say, look, I'd like you to, if the co-chair says, I'd like you to come up with a few ideas, 1 or 2 or 3 ideas that we should, do proactively over the next 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is. The other thing I just wanted to say, this, I realize we're just brainstorming here and maybe this is a silly thing. So now I'm feeling intimidated about saying something that my people might go, that's really stupid, Doug. But, so Roberta has designed a great handbook that is handed out and it's been, but we live in a multimedia world. Maybe we could come up with a few short YouTube videos on whether running a meeting or making a motion, and it could live on YouTube and it could be our own internal training videos just a thought. I don't know. Maybe it's
Yeah.
crazy.
I think there is a lot out there that people don't know about also.
Right.
The borough president's, website and the location that I indicated before has all of their, various, trainings that they've developed over the several years. And I remember reading in the survey, someone saying, gee, it'd be nice to have something on zoning and land use basics. It exists. It's on that page. You can see it. It's an hour long and it's very good. So I think part of it is people don't know how to access material that is already there. And yes, we have to develop more. And yes, we have to communicate better where to find things and help people out. And people have to come forward and ask, does this exist and can I get access to it? So I think it's all of the above. But there is a lot more available that would be underlying kind of basics of what you need to know to be a board member than perhaps people are aware. Adam.
I wasn't, I'm sorry, you were responding to, I said, one thing I was saying that Jami mentioned on the idea of sort of rotating and as being assigned. There is something, I mean, obviously you have to start with one person, but I know in my own professional life, I've learned different things from different people. And I, shadowed people, whether I was a waiter or in real estate, you learn. So the idea that everybody has different skill sets, maybe, sometimes you're naturally drawn to someone that you may not learn the most from. So anyway, that's it.
Adam, and then we'll
This
keep
very,
saying, and then we'll
yeah,
move on.
this is very quick, but inspired by you throwing something weird out there. I think it might be interesting for the next full board to have exec committee on the dais or whatever, and then have Alex, sorry, not Alex, Max or Alex, Max or Alex or Jesse randomize the seating of the rest.
With assigned seating.
Like assigned seating, like not because as a co-chair, there's no need for me to be up there, right? Like on the items that Madge and I speak to, we can come up and speak to that item. And I think that might be one way of cutting down on the crosstalk, just creating a different power dynamic. I am very acknowledged that the younger, newer people all sit to each other in the audience, and it's kind of a self-preservation thing. But maybe it would be better if we're all thrown up there. So kind of a crazy idea. Yeah.
Just curious, how many think that would be?
I think it's
I
a
like
great
that idea.
idea.
How many think? it
We
would
can
be?
implement that on our end as well. That's no problem. I like it too.
I see Roberta's hand.
Yeah, I was
Roberta?
just gonna say, in the handbook, we can embed the links to the different programs so that people can find, on one page, so people can find it very easily. Now that the handbook is online, it's going to be much easier to do some of that fun stuff. So anybody that has any ideas, please keep giving them to me because I'll be upgrading the handbook in the next month or two.
Great, thank you.
Just very, very quickly, I know that a few people talked about procedure and getting bogged down with the procedure, and some people just going on and on, stopping the meeting and just going off and on and on about a tangent about procedure. And it used to be very annoying, but over time, I have realized that it's actually very helpful to hear these small, off-the-cuff conversations about procedure. It really helps, especially if you're a co-chair, but even if you're not a co-chair, just to understand what is happening around you. So I understand that sometimes it can sound very disconnected from the actual conversation, but it is over time very additive and very, very helpful.
Well, we've almost killed a half hour and gotten through one section with references to others. Is this kind of conversation helpful? Should we do it again for a half hour next month?
Yeah, I think so.
What I take away from tonight is a to-do list for certain co-chairs and for the executive committee, which is developing a mentor program. Not to be called that, to be called something gentler. And.
Big brothers.
And also.
sisters.
We'll come up with something, but that is probably mandatory in the sense that we will assign them and then things happen and whatever happens, happens. But I think that that is one takeaway. Another is that we should go over the materials that we have available for new hires, or new appointees, and that we need to plan a social event for new hires or appointees. I think that will begin to address one area, and it's also the most time sensitive since we're almost March, and April is when we essentially expect to see our new folk arriving, and we should get a goodly number this time. We have information on folks who may not be reapplying. We're down a couple now already. So I think that that is a good first step here. And please, if anyone has late breaking ideas around some of these issues, please, feel free to send them and I will follow through on sending the homework around because I do recommend it. And thank you, Seema, for seconding that.
Beverly, how many current board members do you how many do you currently have?
I think we have 48.
And 27 responded.
Right. Oh, what's the voting percentage at a non-presidential election in New York?
20-something.
We're supposed to be involved.
Well, we are, yeah.
But there are 48 current members. I just thinking about the composition of the board right now. People who are showing up at things showing up consistently.
Yeah, and we have people who show up less.
Yeah.
Which is more problematic, but okay. Moving along, then we will do more on this next time. I found this very helpful. Others felt the same way. And I'd like to do our usual run through of the committees to understand one, what you've been doing, and secondly, you have resolutions for the March board. So transportation.
Do you want to give it a whirl since it's your
Go ahead.
official meeting?
You have it right in front of you, so.
No, I don't. I don't have anything in front of me.
We don't actually have any resolutions. We had some great discussions, and we will be contacting Department of Transportation with many issues when we have our upcoming meeting with them. It is not, we don't have a date for it yet, but we expect to get that within a week or so.
And I saw the final letter on left-hand turns went out.
Yes.
So that you're following through on what was decided at the last meeting.
We absolutely are.
And the DOT, I know maybe you'll mention this in the BCI report, but I think there's some overlap with a few issues about open
BCI,
dining
yes.
and about street things.
And if you heard today, Controller Lander lambasted DOT for their slow action on
the outdoor dining.
outdoor dining.
Right.
Right.
It's done like 1%.
Housing authority.
No resolutions.
Percent.
We
They're all
are
coming
going
from
to spend.
Percent.
Can we have some quiet for Stephen?
We're hoping to spend the beginning of the meeting in executive session talking about our public member applications. And then after that, I'm hoping to spend the meeting sort of strategizing on what we as a committee want to be doing longer term. We have a bit of a respite from all of our statutory works sort of pending, at least that we know of. So it'd be nice to sort of, as a group, figure out what we want to accomplish in the next 6 months to a year.
Okay, thank you. Preservation.
We will have two resolutions. One of them I think will be very straightforward. The other one, which is for an accessibility ramp, I think we will have some number of the public come to testify in favor of it. They had a really huge outpouring of support for this. I suggested to them after the meeting that if they wanted to do a petition or something and present that petition, that might be as effective as having 11 people testify.
But it wasn't controversial.
It was not, no.
But they're engaged.
Yes, I mean, it was beautiful to have them all come out. And then we'll also announce that in March, our meeting will be joint with Parks to discuss a fairly substantial application from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, plus whatever other items come before us.
Okay, thank you. YEL, nobody here. Or YEL, okay. I have to phone them up. Parks.
We will have the Broadway Mall Association come and present to us about some public art installation. I don't think they need a resolution, but it should not be controversial at all. If they do, DPR will come to us about the renovation of Frederick Douglass Playground. Definitely a resolution needed there. Central Park Conservancy might come to us with 1 or 2 items. They said they would come to us in January, then in February, but they haven't. So I'm going to follow up with them again and see if they'd like to come in March. And then, of course, there's the Tank Pavilion, which is the item that is joint with preservation. And so, you know, the committee will be meeting twice next month on the 13th with preservation, just for that one item. Not for the entire preservation meeting, just to be clear. And then also on the 17th for our own regular meeting. And my request to the preservation co-chairs is that if our item could be the first one on the agenda, that would be helpful, so that our members could come in. Thank you.
No, we need to have quorum of both committees. No,
just one.
One committee has to have a quorum in a joint meeting. It's one of our ways of making life easier that we passed. Roberta, budget and strategy.
Sorry, the unmute button didn't want to come up. So we had a letter, a report from all the agencies of what their responses were to all of our budget requests. And last year, we answered just those requests that we didn't answer every request, every comment. This year, I decided that we need to respond to every comment, because in part it's going to the agencies, but it's also going to the board members. And I want people to be able to see what, like something like the DOT has agreed to do the study of the 72nd Street bike lane after 8 years of asking for it. A couple of things have been supported and are basically off the list. So we thanked in the response, we thank the agencies. I'm still working on it. I should have it ready by the end of this week, and we'll look at it. It will be a week late getting to back to OMB, but they were very late getting stuff up on the website. Actually, they were 3 months late getting our materials up on the website. So I didn't feel intensely pressured with a 3-week window, because we had to reach out to every committee that had requests. So this year will be a much fuller report. We'll have every item on it.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I think people will appreciate seeing that and getting the information. As I circulated to Roberta and Carrie today and the executive committee, I received back from the Borough President's office, the Borough President's summation of their FY26 borough level needs statement, which builds off of all of those that have been submitted by all of the various districts in Manhattan last fall. And I felt it was a good comfortable fit with what we had in fact requested. So this will be the basis for what the borough president testifies before the council during the coming budget hearings at city council. So all good. And if there's anyone who wants to see that, it's getting voted this Thursday at Borough Board. I'd be happy to let anyone who wants to get a copy, get a copy. Thanks. BCI.
We had, thanks to Doug, got us Jeffrey Garcia, the nightlife mayor, come present at our last meeting, and it was really informative. And I've actually put him in touch with someone in the neighborhood for a conflict resolution. Put them together, and they're hopefully working it out. So really was an excellent presentation. And when I emailed him about this, he emailed me back right away. So I think that's something that is beneficial, and we're going to really make an attempt to have more types of things like this so we can make the community more informed as how we can help them with their issues and things that they didn't know versus some of the minutia that we get stuck in sometimes. We had a couple of liquor licenses that we approved, and we had some dining out applications. I'm going to propose an amendment, a resolution to amend the process for the dining out applications. It's on the Dropbox on the full board. Look at it, please. And Ben is leaving the board, and we're going to be looking for a new co-chair. There is some urgency to this.
Yes, I know.
Because I may or may not be here at the next meeting because my girlfriend is expecting a baby in a couple weeks, maybe today, I don't even know. She's at 37 weeks, and so it could be any day. So we are looking at some urgency.
I understand the urgency, yes.
Yeah,
I'm
so,
working on it.
yeah, if anybody has any thoughts, please talk to Darlene and myself. That's it.
We had 2 cannabis licenses too.
Oh, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, and there's one that is just opened at 91st Street. Yes, Health and Human Services.
Yeah, well, our February meeting is next Tuesday. So don't have much to report on that, except I will tell you what we're gonna have. We're gonna have first a discussion of what the rights of undocumented immigrants are when the Iceman cometh. And also the powers of people like us to protect them.
Very important.
We
stuff.
might want people to come.
Yeah.
Very
And also
important.
get as much publicity as we can.
Who's discussing?
And the presenters are going to be Kay Carpin.
All right.
And somebody who works on immigrant rights with them. Carol Scott.
Yeah, I know Gail's office has been very engaged around this matter as well. And she's spoken to it, might want to check in with them and see whether she has some recommendations about others who could help flesh out the presentation.
Okay.
Beverly, on that, I've been attending the DC3 Open Arms meeting that the JCC holds every month. And there may be somebody from that group that you want to have come.
Roberta, could you, how do we make sure that Ken and Saralee
I will
get-
add them. I will add them to the list for the meetings, and I will send them emails of who to contact.
Okay. Okay, just trying to get all the loops closed.
Yep. Kristen was attending for a while, but she's been busy with work. They're basically it's all youth related. It's the public schools. It's through the public schools, but they have a lot of excellent contacts, and they bring in specialists for the meetings to talk about different areas.
This sounds very timely and valuable.
I think it's gonna be interesting, really, and I would.
And it could also be an ongoing agenda item too.
Yeah. I'm afraid that it may have to be.
Yeah. Plus the defunding of NIH and everything else. And then after that, we have something that will probably result in a resolution on requesting additional funding for Bellevue Hospital because Beth Israel is going to be closing probably, and the chair of their community advisory board in Bellevue is very concerned about influx of patients and not having enough resources to cover adequately treat them. So we may actually have the new president of Bellevue or the new CEO of Bellevue at the meeting virtually too.
Okay.
And they're going to want a resolution.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think it'll be controversial.
No, sounds.
And then we have a third.
Our third one is Ryan Health is going to just do an informational presentation. They're the Upper West Side's only outpatient Medicaid provider.
And this is Medicaid. Program.
Yeah. I'm afraid it's something they're taking a sledgehammer to. But anyway, dangers there. I had not presented tonight anything on the idea sort of a month ago regarding doing a letter to the mayor that's per the city charter language on community boards. I anticipate reaching out to committees in the coming month to make sure that anything we produce in that regard is both very timely and most important. This kind of thing might in fact be part of that. Thanks. With that,
Can I talk about the
yeah, go
task
ahead.
force? So we had an excellent meeting this month with someone from Senator Brodheim's office who talked about what they're doing in Albany and asked members of the task force what the concerns were. So we are going to be having a small subgroup working on coming up with some materials for seniors to help them with some of the different programs. We will be having someone from Congressman Nowthers come in, I believe, April. In March, we're having someone from Borough President Levine's office come and talk about their his program, his guide for seniors. But the February meeting was very lively. It was very productive. People were very engaged. And of course, the big concerns are the cuts, the federal government cuts, and food insecurity. So we were working closely with HHS. Saralee is a member of the task force, so which is great because we can work very closely on some of these related issues.
Terrific, thank you. And finally, Doug, on public safety.
Sure. So I'm happy to say that we're finally, the trespass affidavit training we're going to be doing, it's going to gel nicely, which is going to be given by the district attorney's office, Manhattan District Attorney's Office, in conjunction with CB7 and the 3 business improvement districts. Just a note, this is really for business owners. It's not really as much for the general public, but for businesses to understand that there are tools that they can use when they have recidivist shoplifting and beyond. So that's a training that's going to be happening, and we're narrowing it down to the dates. It's going to be all online, and it'll be virtual, 100% virtual, and it'll be probably during the daytime. The other thing which I mentioned to Beverly earlier is that the district attorney's office is coming up with some suggestions for modification to discovery reform. There was bail reform that everybody talks about, but discovery is a huge part of the challenges that prosecutors are facing. So there are some suggestions which I actually have here that I'm going to be studying, and whether or not it's something that we want to put forward as a resolution to support the DA's office or not. And also I'd like to get, to know what our local state representatives feel about that. But this is something that is being put forth by the Manhattan DA's office. And then lastly, in the not too distant future, I want to ask DA's office to conduct some of the modules of training they have. And I think the next one that I think is apropos is the is prevention of hate crimes, identification, prevention of hate crimes. So that's on the more distant future. That's it.
I appreciate that.
So on
Saralee.
next to last thing, have you thought of speaking to the defense bar about some of the things that the district attorney are suggesting? Because there's a great difference.
Sure.
And there might be some good things on both sides. But
Yeah.
there's certainly a lot of tension.
I think that if we were to actually, if this actually gels and we were to even consider a resolution, I think we should hear from the defense side as well as the prosecution. That's the only thing. So yes, absolutely, I would welcome that.
Great.
Yeah, sure.
So if you have any contacts that Doug could actually pursue, that would be great. Okay, I'll talk.
Yeah, we can talk, sure.
Great. Any old business or new business that anyone wishes to bring up?
A question.
A question.
So people have been making little asides tonight about some of the things coming out of Washington. How much are we supposed to talk about it or not talk about it? As a government is
There's no supposed to. I think there's a lot happening we have no influence over, other than as individuals who may wish to take whatever aggressive action we wish. I'm not sure when something hits our district that we can identify. I would be happy to address that as part of our work.
Earlier in the evening, the Transportation Committee was chatting informally with these two people about the fact that the president seems to be very concerned about congestion pricing.
Yes.
And bicycle lanes and medians and those.
And windmills.
And paper straws, but you know. But those things do judge us.
Absolutely.
And so my question.
We have all sorts of resolutions already around bike lanes and around congestion pricing. I think the issue is, okay, where is the pressure point that is likely to be effective? I don't think our president cares what Community Board 7 thinks.
Or our elected officials.
Nor anybody else.
So the question will be, what could we do that is, one, relevant to the district services, and two, has some possibility of having some impact.
Depending on what he decides he wants, how he wants to kill congestion pricing, one of those options would be for him to stop federal transit money for the state of New York, which would not just affect us, but the entire state, and would send a clear message to other states that if you don't fall in line, you also run the risk of having some of your services interrupted. Obviously, transportation is a major issue to the state of New York. The MTA is the economic engine of the city, which is the economic engine of the state, which is the economic engine of the country. So if you play with that stuff, you're looking for deep, deep trouble.
Everything is.
I have to imagine that the city council and in Albany have been thinking about the defensive posture and anticipating this. I'd be very interested to know what the elected officials have been.
I think the right thing to do right now is get information. Pull it in, think hard about what has some actionable, rather than, tilt and windmill. I think we've got to do some homework here first.
That's why I think like the things like Ken would come into your committee with the migration situation, right? Like having somebody there who can present the facts, like what is actually, I mean, there are a lot of advocates, a lot of people who feel one way about the issue, but what is the current situation? What can be done at the local level, things that are germane to our neighborhood, that where there can be an impact. but knowing just the facts, I think is what we're all struggling with right now, and I hope that will come out of your meeting.
And the problem is the facts are changing daily right now.
Yeah.
And we don't, some things get splashed and then put back the next day because it was obviously the wrong thing to do. So it's chaos.
Or some things get slashed and a court tells them to put them back and they're back in a day.
Well, rather than it being like a rally, like we all just opinion, but just like what the current policy is, like laying down like what it might be today, I think would serve the public well. And then allow them to walk out and make their own opinion.
Right, but I would like to, as you say, link it to the services that are in our district for our community.
You know, Hannah Wienerman in Nadler's office is monitoring it very closely, and he is our representative. He's there in DC. So.
Okay.
And we still have a lot of migrant children in the schools, some of whom are attending school and some of whom are not attending, depending on how fearful the parents are. So we do have a very large population of asylum seeking children in CD7.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right, and most asylum
And
seekers.
their parents, and many of their parents are still living at shelters in CD7.
There is obviously a confusion that is not being clarified, perhaps on purpose, by the administration, that asylum seekers are not illegals. Right? Yeah, exactly. On this happy note, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Seconded? All in favor?
All right.